TalkSport, on air, online and on TV at Freeview Channel 723. Oh yeah, it's business time. It's business. It's business time. I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say it's time for business. It's business time. Ooh, it's business. It's business time.
It is business time right now on TalkSport, and this morning we're going to talk to Gemma Godfrey, who's Head of Investment Strategy at Brooks Macdonald. A very good morning to you, Gemma.
Good morning.
And I suppose it's very difficult to talk about any other story apart from the Barclays story, which seems to be getting bigger and bigger by the day.
And Barclays is definitely still dominating the news flow. And we saw yesterday that the saying, diamonds are forever, isn't necessarily true for Bob Diamond, as he resigned from being the CEO of Barclays Bank.
And he resigned, I suppose, after so much pressure was brought to bear on him. But with each resignation, it doesn't seem to make it go away, does it?
No, and actually the big fear is that the disruption to the banking industry could actually be widespread. And people are focusing on, who will be next. Because what's not really understood is that actually the investigation, it's global, and it's already touched 18 financial institutions.
How is it taken so long for this investigation to be done and to start reporting, really, and for it to be still going on?
Because the fear is that there could be disruptions in terms of lending and employment. And actually the true victim of these investigations could actually be the man on the street. Because, the banking industry, it's the largest private sector employer. They're already struggling, with low trading volumes, weak economic growth and tighter regulation costs. And we're already hearing about banks, for example, Credit Suisse, who's rumoured to be planning to cut a third of their senior roles in Europe. So when Barclays come out and pay a settlement of, $451 million, a hit like this doesn't bode well for employment and for lending to actual small businesses as well.
And there's been an awful lot of toing and froing from politicians and an awful lot of sort of mud being slung, and that seems to have stopped. Bob Diamond's going to be up before a select committee later on today. But nobody's really explained specifically when this was going on, how it could have affected the sort of the man and woman in the street. I mean, was it something that was making life difficult for people back then?
It seems to have come more to the forefront, and actually the bigger risk is going forward. And actually what could happen is a hit to confidence is the biggest risk. So if costs rise and confidence falls, this could cause banks to actually rein in lending for small businesses, etc., more than before. So actually the risk is more going forward, which is potentially why this has been such a hotly covered investigation, and it has to be handled very sensitively. Otherwise it could be the man on the street that will feel the consequences.
Sure, and of course there are now more calls to separate better the investment banking branches from the retail branches, which up to now there have been what people have referred to as sort of Chinese walls between them. And do you think that this kind of scandal will lead to a bigger separation that will be kind of ordered by law?
There are calls for better oversight, and we've seen regulation costs already on the increase. And actually another one of the concerns is within Europe there is this call for a banking union, and actually having this oversight and this one single regulator overseeing all the banks across Europe. Now the UK has been strongly resisting this to maintain a level of independence and oversight for our own banks. And again, the worry is that this could heat up the debate as an example of missing oversight between those wishing to maintain this level of independence and those that wish to participate in this banking union.
Right.
So it can be hotly debated at the moment.
And is there a timetable for the release of any further sort of revelations that might involve any other banks? We're told there may be another 20 banks involved in this particular scandal. When will more information on them come out?
The regulator isn't always forthcoming to tell people, exactly when to expect certain news flows to come out, and instead they're much more focused on trying to manage the risks and lessen the surprise themselves internally. So we'll have to, it's more of a wait and see attitude, and as I said, they're already investigating 18 financial institutions, and they've actually come out and said that they want more time. This has already been going on for 2 years, and they want to extend this much longer.
Now, I know there's not a lot of sympathy out there for bankers. There's a lot of cartoons doing the rounds, and public opinion is probably at all-time low, and running lots of sort of interviews with people on the street saying, why on earth should somebody like Bob Diamond walk away with all this money? And it's becoming very polarised. It must be quite a difficult time to be working in the city right now.
Exactly, but what people don't quite often forget is the fact that the banking industry provides over 1 million people with jobs. So there is a percentage that are in the wrong and should be punished and should be brought to justice, etc. But there are a lot of innocent people there. There are people that not only work in the banking industry but support the banking industry, and we're talking about restaurant owners that are there to serve people that work in the banking industry on their lunch breaks, etc. And what will happen is that in an environment where, where this confidence is lost and, costs do go up for banks, it actually, as I've mentioned before, small firms, they're already being asked to pay higher rates to borrow. And keeping in mind, they provide on average 80% of new jobs. If lending is reined in to these small firms, actually even more widespread, outside of the banking industry, the outlook for jobs, could look quite bleak.
And this is after weeks and weeks and weeks of Eurozone problems and negotiations on the global economy. I mean, it's all getting a bit desperate, isn't it? It's as bad as the weather.
Oh, yes, wet and dreary. The situation within Europe has been deteriorating. We've seen unemployment rise. And the reason why it's important for us is that the European market still accounts for more than half of our exports. So, if we produce 10 cars, 5 of them are going to Europe. So having that strong demand there, was very important to us. On the other hand, the Asian markets have been doing very well, and we're seeing today that Asian markets are making modest gains, and we're looking at the longest winning streak this year. And the hope is actually that within China, they are going to be more aggressive in trying to support their own economy.
And while this Barclays story is very much dominating everything, is there anything else coming up later on today that's worth watching out for?
Well, as I mentioned, the importance of European demand, we're going to be hearing further indications of health, around the world and within Europe. So we're going to be hearing data from the services industries around the world, Euro area retail sales. So that's going to be very important for our retailers. And an update on Italy's growth. And obviously, a lot of the focus has been on Spain and Italy's health within Europe as the next things to watch.
And you mentioned that the Asian markets were performing sort of slightly better. What's thought to be the reason for that? Because we do hear as well that China's not performing quite as well as it used to.
China's data has disappointed, but it's within the context of still a very strong, long trend of growth. And the reason why people are a bit more positive is the fact that, unlike our governments that have less options available to us, with rates being as low as they are already, so the possibility to cut rates is more limited. The possibility to, pour more money into the economy is still an option, but more limited. You have greater tools available within China, and the hope is that the Chinese will actually implement this and continue to support their economy.
So, do you think this afternoon people in dealing rooms will be glued to their televisions watching Bob Diamond giving his evidence to see whether he's going to stick it to Barclays or not?
That does look like it's a hot topic, especially because today, obviously, the American markets are going to be closed. So the focus will be on the UK, Europe, and we've obviously seen the news coming out of China.
Right. Well, Gemma, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and I'm sure we'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you very much.
Gemma Godfrey there, Head of Investment Strategy at Brooks Macdonald.